Hello and welcome back to my channel, Mental Health with Melissa. If you're new here, I'm Melissa. Please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. I post new videos every single Sunday and Wednesday, and subscribing to my channel really helps me get mental health information out there to our communities of color and tons of free LCSW test prep for those of you studying to become LCSWs. I also have a LCSW study program entitled Social Work Study with Melissa available for purchase at the link down below, so feel free to check that out. Today we are going to be taking a look at a LCSW test prep vignette question surrounding dual relationships. So first I want to go into the definition of dual relationships, and then we'll get into the actual test prep question. So dual relationships, also known as multiple relationships, often refer to a situation in which multiple roles exist between a therapist and a client. For example, when a client also is a friend or family member or any other sort of relationship, it can be considered a dual relationship. Now, dual relationships can be very, challenging to navigate if you are a therapist, and I guess it depends on the type of relationship that you have with that person, because of course it would be inappropriate to be the therapist for a really close friend or family member, because it would just be really hard to remain objective or unbiased because you know them already. So for that reason, we really refrain from having dual relationships like that. However, if you live in a small community and you are one of the few therapists there, and you know a lot of people, when you go to the store, you know somebody as the regular store clerk, or somebody that is like a teacher to your child, and all of these different sorts of relationships exist. And so how do we respond to these relationships as the therapist is the question. So let's go ahead and get into an actual test prep question and see how we actually answer it. So as always, pause the video here, read the vignette yourself, answer it based on what you believe to be the answer, and then play and then compare and contrast to the rationale that I give to kind of test your test-taking skills. Okay, so let's go ahead and break this question down. A client is referred to a therapist. Okay, so this is the first session. During the first session, the therapist realizes that the client serves as a fellow PTO. So PTO is like a parent teacher organization, PTO committee member of the therapist's son's school, where the client's children also attend. They have actually met once before during a PTO meeting and have weekly PTO meetings moving forward. Okay, so they've met once before, and this is not a one-time sort of relationship. It sounds like there's going to be further interactions and engagements with the therapist and the client outside of the client-therapist relationship, as they're both on the PTO board, and they both have children at that same school. So what is the best way for the therapist to respond? So best meaning that, some of these questions may all sound pretty good, but what is going to be the best sort of answer? So maybe the process of elimination, we can try to figure this out. Okay, let's go through each of the questions. Option A, tell the client they cannot continue therapy and end abruptly. So this would be very confusing if you're imagine you're the client and you're in their shoes, and all of a sudden during the first session, whether you know the therapist outside of therapy or not, the therapist just doesn't really explain to you what's going on and just ends the therapy session. That's extremely confusing, and that can be even harmful to the client. So this would not be an appropriate answer, especially because we kind of see like this sort of tell the client the beginning of this answer. We usually don't want to just like enforce rules right away. So you can also look at the way that the answer is kind of worded, and that kind of will also give you an idea of it being either appropriate or inappropriate. Okay, option B, ask the client if she remembers ever meeting, assess her reaction, and then decide from there. Okay, well, this sounds kind of reasonable. Ask the client if she remembers meeting, assess her reaction, and then decide from there. Well, I want to compare this option to the other options before making a decision so that we can kind of see the major differences. Option C, immediately let the client know of the dual relationship and their previous meeting. Ask the client how she feels about this and discuss referrals. So if we're comparing option C to option B, we see that in option C, we're allowing the client to know about it right away. We don't want to hide these sorts of things from the client. To ask the client if she ever remembers meeting and assessing her reaction is kind of taking a more passive route. And in therapy, we don't want to be passive. We definitely want to address concerns up front. And this is really good for like mirroring and modeling. So because of that, we don't want to be testing out the client. We don't want to be seeing if they know or don't know us and then kind of going from there and making decision without their informed consent. We want to make sure that they have the informed consent so they can make an informed decision. So, okay, now let's compare option C to option D. So option D, immediately let the client know of the dual relationship. Okay, so similar to the first part of option C as well. And tell the client to not acknowledge each other during PTO meetings. So to ask the client not to pretend or not talk to the therapist during PTO meetings, it is very presumptuous in that the client would agree to that because again, there's already this dual relationship and it wouldn't be appropriate to tell the client to pretend like they don't know each other or something. So that's not an appropriate answer. And so through the process of elimination, we've come to option C, but let's break it down and understand why this is such an appropriate answer. So immediately let the client know of the dual relationship. So we want to make sure that that's up there and that's out there. The client probably does know already because if they've met before and they're going to continue to meet, then likely they recognize each other, but we want to just like immediately address it up front. So let the client know that, hey, we have met in the PTO and, I'm wondering how you feel about this. So ask the client how she feels about this. And then from there, because this is not a sort of friendship or family member, so this is a little bit more blurry. This probably would involve more supervision or consultation with another clinical therapist to discuss, what is going on here. Ideally, it would be best not to have this dual relationship and not to be the therapist, especially because this is just the first session. So they haven't established this rapport yet. And so that's why it's okay to discuss referrals. Again, you want to process this with the client, ask her how she feels about it, what her thoughts are about it, and then give her the option for referrals. So that's why option C is going to be the most appropriate answer. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Again, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more content. Until next time, managing mental health matters.